Hey there, everybody. This is Shufflebeam Approach 11 Clarification Hearings by Tyler McLaughlin, presented by Tyler McLaughlin, anyhow, for our SRM 670-900 class. Here we go. So, what is it? Clarification hearings approach to evaluation is essentially characterized by putting whichever program it is that you're evaluating on trial, quote unquote. So, there would be, in this case, for any given program, a defense evaluator, and this evaluator defends the program as a success. So whenever they do their research, they're looking for ways in which the program was successful. And there's the prosecution evaluator. This one represents a case to condemn the program as a failure. Finding any kind of negative things, this evaluator goes through and does their research to figure out how the program was a failure. And then there's the judge. The judge is technically the jury as well, and this is typically comprised of stakeholders. And the research is conducted. This is to figure out what kind of information there is already, what kind of programs there are that are similar to this, how have similar programs been successful or not successful, and also in the specific program itself. So looking at the actual quantitative and qualitative data that the program data and outcomes have, doing that research and preparing themselves for a trial vis-a-vis a defense evaluator and a prosecution evaluator. Now, this is all heard in front of a jury, and the jury, like I said, is typically comprised of the stakeholders. And also, Shufflebeam mentioned that they're videotaped frequently so that future lessons can be learned, or for future programs that are doing research, they can go back and evaluate those videotapes. So the purpose of the clarification hearing approach to evaluation is to present a balanced viewpoint of both the strengths and the weaknesses of a program. So some questions that might be asked, like, should the program be judged a success or a failure? Or is it good or better than alternative programs designed to address similar objectives? These are questions that are aimed at this particular approach. Most evaluation in general, I would say, but I think particular with this one. So who does it? The participants, as previously mentioned, the defending evaluator, and they're defending they're doing a research case as to why the program was a success. There's the prosecuting evaluator, making sure that the jury understands that the program has been a failure or needs to be tweaked, changed. There's the jury, and these people typically comprised of stakeholders. They're listening to the litigation between the two evaluators and then eventually making a judgment. And then there's the administrating evaluator. This one is the one who sets up the trial and videotapes the proceedings for future lessons that could potentially be learned. And we'll get into this setting up the trial a little bit more in detail here in a minute. Now, the audiences, these are the people who could use these things. Obviously, the stakeholders, all the previously mentioned people, the different evaluators and the jury, but the stakeholders, and also potentially leadership of other firms trying to learn from the mistakes or death traps or obstacles or whatever that might prove the program to have difficulty achieving its objectives. Sometimes leadership from different firms are also the audience for this sort of program evaluation model. So the methods used. The administering evaluator helps establish the boundaries and rules for presenting the evidence for both the prosecuting and defending evaluators. Then both the different evaluators go off and they do their research, and they do research regarding the program, including the exact data from the program procedures and the information from research on similar topics from previous programs or other programs, and any other sort of qualitative or quantitative data that they may obtain that will help defend their position. And then the defense and the prosecution present the case to a jury. Like previously mentioned, the in front of stakeholders, because they're who have to make the decision on whether or not the program was a success or a failure or needs modification. Again, this is videotaped, helping further future researchers, and then the jury makes a decision. Robert Wolf, in 1975, he was the one that pioneered this clarification hearing or judicial style approach to program evaluation. It provides a balanced approach to examining both the strengths and weaknesses of a program, and these people are typically really impassioned, and decision makers also have the opportunity to hear these really impassioned cases regarding the program. Now, there's obviously advantages to this sort of thing because the judicial hearings provide this balanced view of both strengths and weaknesses, and there are evidence and rules that are set up ahead of time, ahead of the presentation or the trial, that are established, making the proceedings very transparent and clear, making sure that both parties understand like what kind of evidence would be accepted and how the evidence can be presented so that it's as fair as possible. But there's also some big criticisms. Because it's like one side versus the other, this approach creates an adversarial sentiment. And this sentiment typically leads to evaluators presenting biased arguments or very biased in order to quote-unquote win. And so thus the evaluation and hard facts, or things that are actual, factual, real, quantifiable, or qualitative, really good and true, is subordinated by the need for either the defense or the prosecution to win. Another big criticism is that people that are smooth talkers or effective litigators are much more likely to convince the jury of the merits of their side, even if their evidence is poorly founded. So these people, just because they talk really smooth and they can convince the jury given some other antics, doesn't necessarily mean that the evidence that they're presenting is better and should be judged in terms of being less than the other side, or that one side wins or loses based on these smooth talking abilities. And obviously, when you're going one side versus the other, these things can be really politically contentious. So that's another really big criticism. This has been Evaluation Model Approach number 11, presented by Tyler McLaughlin. Here are the references. Hope you all have a fantastic evening or afternoon or whatever time it is, wherever you are. Soak it up.